I was a little bit surprised that there was some reservations about this, and I guess we didn't voice those among ourselves in the last meeting when this was presented to us. But I don't know. I'd like to know what you think.
Well, I mean, I think Kathy brought up some good points. I don't mind offering it as a suggestion, but the 4 of the teachers are over 20 years.
Yeah, so that.
And I wouldn't want to, the last option is that they can apply at Lincoln, but if there's not a position, or if they're not the preferred candidate for the position, they'll lose their job.
Yeah.
And I hate to lose a seasoned teacher just because after the 20 plus years that they wouldn't opt to do that. So that would be one thing. And then the only other thing that, again, I think a model like this to phase it in, I think would be better rather than making it optional. I do understand though that, we have to figure out how we're going to best utilize teachers that we have. So I wish there was some sort of compromise that, because it's a lot easier to start hiring that way.
Which we have.
Yeah, exactly. Rather than having it be, you either do this or you may not have a position. And I know we're not saying that to them, but ultimately that could happen if they choose not to.
Yeah. Maybe.
I don't know how, I guess it isn't actually totally mandatory, and that they can say, well, I'd rather apply for something else in the system or whatever.
Maybe if I could.
Okay. First of all, I'd like to know if there's a seniority bump order in this school system. Is there a if enrollments go down, Joyce.
Okay.
And it said like, oh God, we got too many middle school teachers that that don't have enough flexibility. It seems to me, where I worked, there was a seniority thing. And if you were 20 years in, regardless, you had a lot of seniority, and somebody with less experience would go before you would. Is that the case here?
That was pre-Act 10. They don't have any union
That's
rights to do
pre-Act
that
10.
anymore.
Okay. All right. So it's Lord of the Flies here.
Yeah, that's
okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's very accurate.
Act 10 changed all of
We
that.
Yeah. Okay.
we have the district and this policy, probably 4 or 5 years ago. We do have what's called for teachers and professional, what's called a reduction in force policy. So if we have to reduce teachers and there are absolutely no positions for teachers if we have to reduce, there are steps that we would take. So, if there's attrition, we would reassign teachers. If a teacher has a written disciplinary action in the prior 2 years, we would look at that. We would ask for volunteers. And then if none of those, if we still need to reduce, then we look at a variety of different things as to who's going to be reduced. Length of service is one of those. And but one of the other things we look at in that list is, their certifications and licenses. So there is a reduction in force policy. We have not, this was put in place several years ago. We've not been in a position yet where we've had to use this, because even if, it's happened at the elementary, it's happened at the middle school in the last couple of years, where we've had less core teachers. We have less core teachers this year than last year. But typically, because of a resignation or a retirement, we've got a spot for those people.
Yeah, a couple things have happened though. I mean, teachers aren't so plentiful anymore and not so easy to get, and good ones are not so easy to keep either. I would say, on the statement here, the would-be policy, gee, I'm just underwhelmed by the why, the why paragraph. It doesn't, it doesn't even pertain to the issue. I mean, we know that students learn best when they know the teacher cares, et cetera, but I don't see how this relates. I think the justification is all in the second paragraph about the system now being used that, that has as its core the collaboration stuff. And I still don't understand why you can't collaborate with a teacher who just has one discipline. But I don't know. I mean, Lance, maybe you can talk about this, because honestly, I don't know what you guys are doing in the middle school in terms of your organizational program.
Yeah, maybe it would be helpful to have Lance just talk a little bit about why we're at where we are today, why we're asking there's 10 or 11, how many teachers do we have? 12 teachers that have one license.
It may help, I mean, Carrie and Stacy weren't here when that was reconfigured.
Right.
And most likely not having middle school children didn't really pay attention to that.
Right.
So that may be something we just talk about what that model looks like
Right.
to understand.
So this would be correct me if I'm wrong, Lance, this school year is the third year now that we're in a middle school model versus junior high.
Yeah, if you count last year, yeah.
If you count last year. Yeah. So maybe Lance can shed a little.
Yeah, I feel like I understand what happened. I guess what I'm looking at is how do we come up with a solution that doesn't affect a mandate to our teachers that they have to do this or they're out. And again, I realize we're not saying that,
Right.
but that ultimately, this is a business decision, really, because we are trying to fill gaps that we have to best utilize our workforce, right? So, I mean, I understand that, and if all these people were willing, we wouldn't be talking about this. So I'm just wondering, is there another solution or something that will protect the teachers that don't want to do this, but also move us toward our goal?
I think maybe Lance can shed some light on that, and at least what he's hearing from the teachers at Washington that are in this situation. But I'll let you talk, Lance.
And that's six of your teachers, right, Lance? That would be, because I'm just looking down here at math.
I think he's got
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
I think Washington has 5
Okay.
teachers
Yeah,
that are in
yeah,
that.
with math, there's one, with science, there's one, 2 in ELA and 1 in social studies.
Go ahead, Lance.
Before I start talking, I would, if I can,
Yeah,
just take a
please.
minute to say how much we appreciate you for your service. It has got to be a really difficult time to be a school board member. I've served in an elected role before, and just want to thank you so much for your commitment to our people and to our kids. So I appreciate that. And I don't know how often you get to hear something like that, but I just wanted to take a minute and let you know we appreciate you. I'm not sure exactly where to start because there's a couple different questions. So I think that it would be important to recognize that this, I think at its root, this starts with the declining enrollment in the district. So as Joyce said, as we move to fewer and fewer teachers, we have a model in place that was designed for more students and more teachers. And so when that happens, you have to make tough choices that aren't going to be popular just because it represents change. And that's ultimately what's happening here. I think that we're making a good decision out of things that are out of our control, and ultimately will be better for students. But I think that like the root of it probably does come into the reason we did the reorganization was because of the declining enrollment. The reason we have the middle school model that we have as a result of the reorganization, and now as the declining enrollment continues, we have to adjust to that. So, that's the basis. What you might not know about the middle school model, having been newer to service in the district, is that what we've created is a model where we have large middle schools, but within the school, we want to make sure we prioritize that relationship between student and teacher, because that will leverage learning. Like I would say Theodore Roosevelt said, they're not going to care how much you know until they know how much you care. And our model is built on that. And so instead of having 200 students at a grade level, we divide that in half or into thirds, and there's a smaller house. So the students share the same group of core teachers. And we've prioritized time for those teachers to collaborate together, specifically about the students that they work with. So that's probably unique to a lot of middle school models, in the sense that we invest in that relationship. It's a district priority, but it's also a middle school priority. In addition to that, we also have collaboration around learning, which is the traditional PLC model. So we prioritize that as well, and there's time set aside in the schedule for that. So when we talk about kind of this shift to what most middle schools do, which is have teachers that teach at least 2 subjects, the unintended side effect of that, which is positive, is that we can reduce the size of that house, the unit that's designed to leverage the relationships and to provide the most support for students. So if you think about having 4 teachers, a math, a social studies, English, science teacher, and 100 students, they would have class sizes of 25, and each of those 100 students in that house would meet with that teacher 45 minutes a day. So it's a limited investment in that model. If you reduce that to 2 or 3 teachers, then that house becomes 50 students. It's much easier. They got more time in the day where the student is with the teacher. So because of that, you've got you're able to develop those relationships. So instead of 45 minutes a day with each teacher, I'm spending twice as much time with a teacher and covering 2 subjects as a student. So we've seen that, because that is how we do it in our 6th grade houses. And we've seen that actually does benefit. Teachers appreciate it more. It benefits the students. Instead of me as a teacher trying to keep track of 100 students, I've got 50 that I can focus on. It really leverages my ability to develop relationships and then use those relationships in the classroom to leverage more learning. So that's the house side of it. So just maybe pause there if there's any questions about the house system.
Okay, I understand that better now. Yeah.
So
Small classes, lots of face-to-face time with fewer people.
right.
Sounds,
We talked about, like as an example, I talked about with my librarian this Monday. We've got, in some cases, 12-year-olds who have 10 teachers right now, because they've got the 4 core teachers, so 4 different people for their cores, and then they've got 6 electives. So That's hard to manage for a 12-year-old who's, in a lot of cases haven't been in school for a while. So, so thinking about a way that we can reduce that, it's got to be a positive.
So Lance, what's beyond core? I mean, why just the core teachers then? I mean, people that are teaching social studies now, being retrained to teach English.
Mhm.
I mean, I understand that, but what about phy ed teachers? Could they also teach? I mean, are core teachers kind of like just the general practitioners in the middle school?
Yeah, in a typical middle school, any middle school I've ever worked in, when I was a middle school teacher, I was expected to teach 2 and sometimes 3 subjects.
Mm.
Very similar. Core teachers at the high school are going to have 2, 3 subjects.
Okay.
When I built the schedules at Lincoln, that's how we did it. Very rarely were you teaching one class, one subject.
Mm.
You might have
Were
2
they
social
all-
studies
were they all-
classes.
Yeah, I was gonna say, were they all in your subject area though?
Right. In a high school model,
Yeah.
it is in the subject area. In a middle school model, it's typically, like you'd have an English and a social studies class, and you'd have a math and a science class. So I think you're asking about would elective teachers do that, and typically that isn't. Usually elective teachers are more of a specialized
Okay.
licensure at a middle school.
One of the, and Lance as well can speak to this, we saw this, with the middle school model, and knowing that we are a declining enrollment school, we saw this coming. So I know that Lance and then Corey at the middle school, the principal, you've been having conversations with your 5 or your teachers that have single licenses. You've been having conversations with them since last spring
Yes.
about this, what the future is going to look like. And so those conversations started already in spring, both at Wilson and Washington. And at that time, the conversation was, at the district level, to come up with a plan, some options. I mean, I know this is not, in an ideal world, I know it's not ideal.
I don't know,
As a
for middle school, it
district,
seems
Well, but I think
You know, I mean, we're not
it's a
talking about
realistic ask.
nuclear physics here.
I
I'm
know.
talking about,
I know.
social studies and English.
And we ask K through 6
Absolutely.
teachers
All
to
the
do it
time.
every single day.
All the time, yeah.
So,
But I think what I'm trying to say is, again, we want to be proactive. We know this is going to happen in the next year and 2 years. And I think as a district, we tried to come up with a plan, a good plan to help and support. How can we help this small group of teachers obtain that second license, including whatever cost is involved, and, even giving them, and in the end, they do really have a choice. We saw, I think it was one of your teachers, maybe 2 this summer, 2 teachers at Washington who have a single license, applied for and interviewed for positions at the high school. And moved up to the high school and are now teaching at the high school because, again, they know this is coming. You've talked to your staff. They prefer to just teach, I forget which single subjects. One was English.
I think the one word that Lance used that I want to question him on, I think it's a good plan. I mean, I really think it's a good plan. You said, well, out of a situation that is, not such a positive one, we came up with an unpopular, we unfortunately had to come up with an unpopular solution. How unpopular is it?
Yeah, I don't know what you're hearing from.
I don't remember saying that. I mean, we could check the
Oh,
recording.
you did say, well, okay, yeah, you said something about unpopular, didn't you?
I think what I meant to say is, we have a situation that's out of our control, and we're making the best of that situation.
Okay.
So like, here would be an example. So I just went through like the, our 5 teachers, okay?
Mhm.
3 of them, so Joyce is talking about how we started talking about it in the spring. The 3 of our teachers, I talked about it when I hired them, okay?
Okay.
That in a couple of years, you'll be needing to get another license.
Oh, okay.
You
Well,
know,
that's,
And they, you know, they want to come to Washington because they like what we're doing and they believe in the vision. And getting another license is just part of the package. And at this point, we didn't have any of the rest of this planned together, so it wasn't something I shared with them. It's just, I just said, just so you know, this is, you know, your license is this, and you know, you've got 1 license, and in a couple of years, we'll be asking you to teach 2 subjects, so you'll need a second
Is
license.
that in their contract that says that?
probably not.
I don't, Joyce would know that, I don't think so, but it's just, it was the understanding is, you know, when they hired, and they, you know, it's a benefit to those teachers to be able to add that license.
So how long does the contract last?
A year. Teachers have a year,
A
they
year,
get a new
okay,
contract
okay.
every year. I think what Lance, you know, in this, you know, we didn't want, since, you know, when we went to the middle school model 2 years ago, whenever possible, we hire people with that 1-8 or K-8 license. And then they can teach math, science, social studies, or English. And we've been pretty successful in the last 2 years when we've had open positions at the middle school and we hire people, and we even typically post to be certified in K-8 or 1-8, because again, it gives them that flexibility. So the vast majority of the people we've hired at the middle school for those core subjects are K-8. And I think just this past year, some of it's because of the applicant pool, you know, you had hired 2 people with a single license, but in that you know, we don't want these people to, we don't want to hire these 2 teachers under some kind of false pretense. They were, through open, honest conversations, you know, understand, we want you here, we think you're going to be great, but understand, we're going to be asking you, needing you to get a second license in the next 2 years.
I don't know. It seems to me,
So,
you know, if I were teaching middle school, I'd want to do that. I mean, honestly. I think the model is probably a pretty positive one. And I think that my experience as a department chair is that, and these are academics who have thought they're special ever since they were 6, but the resistance to change is just immense. I mean, they don't even want to change rooms, you know, they don't want to change
yeah.
schedules. They don't want to, and it's sometimes like, well, you know, for their own good, for their own good, you say, well, you know, maybe you should stimulate yourself by learning something new or something.
I think it also comes down to education is not stagnant. And I've been doing the education biz for like 15 years, and I can tell you, we've had 2 major shifts like this and survived and did fine. Very similar to this kind of stuff. What's interesting though, is like, I totally get the math science connection. I get the English to social studies. The only hesitation I have is from social studies to English, just given our repeated conversation about ELA test scores. And I don't know, I guess what makes me nervous is that you're reducing their PLC to 2 people, and what kind of support will social studies folks who maybe don't have that niche in ELA, what supports would they have? Because I think that's the key for me, just that one crossover area.
So can I address?
Yeah, absolutely.
So with the PL, it reduces the house team to
Yeah,
2 teachers,
yeah,
but it actually increases the PLC team. So
Okay.
if I had a team of 2 teams of 4,
uh-huh.
right, then there would be 2 course-aligned teachers.
I see what you're saying. Yep.
So a 2-person team
Right.
is more difficult for collaboration. You don't have as many ideas circulating about how we can improve our instruction. But when you go to a 2-person house, and 6 teachers in the grade level. Now I have 3
Gotcha.
in my subject area.
Yep, that makes more sense.
And so any teacher that was a social studies teacher that got the training and added the English license would be on a team with an experienced English teacher,
Gotcha. Okay.
or 2
Or
perhaps.
2, yeah.
And at both middle schools, what we've been able to do is leverage our support staff, the reading specialists or
Okay.
special ed teachers, to have them be part of that team as well. So, so that, you know, this, it really does add to the value in our PLC, which is why I was sort of like, I was saying, I don't know how unpopular it is because it's extra support for
Yeah,
the learning focus PLC teams.
Well, and as a board, I don't think we can hear the shouts of why a referendum, and then not make fiscally sound decisions like this, taking all the emotion and the everything else out. This is a sound fiscal decision. Because we can't have classes of 12 kids or, 14 kids. We need classes of 25, 26, whatever it happens to be.
I don't know, it seems to me, I know your main concern is like,
Well,
not making it mandatory, but it seems.
How many of the 12 are like totally I'm in?
Well, you can probably only speak for Washington.
I was just gonna say that, yeah.
Yeah,
So of your
5, yeah.
5,
And it's a difficult question, I think, because you're asking me to speak for teachers who have, each one of them are unique. But I will say that I can say for sure, because we hired these teachers and we're excited about the new teachers we brought in. They're excited about being here, and they know that this is part of the deal.
But you didn't hire any new teachers that are.
Yeah, single license.
One license?
We did.
Oh, you did?
We
But
did.
with the warning. that-
Yeah,
Right,
with the understanding.
conversation
Oh,
that-
okay.
Yeah. You know, I would like to think that all of our teachers are all in because they understand the vision of Washington becoming the best middle school in Wisconsin, and they want to be part of that. I think that, it's hard to answer that, but I would say, you know, it's if not all 5 of ours, it's 4 of ours for sure.
and how many of those are greater than 20 versus less than 5?
That kind of pigeonholes individuals. I'm not real comfortable with that.
Well, do you want me to speak to the individual teacher and where each person
part
is?
of my concern is we have a retaining problem with our good teachers. So again, we're looking at greater than 20 years for teachers that we may lose from our district if they don't do this. So again, there's no safety net for them. I mean, I understand the model. It's just, we're not protecting those teachers that are, I'm assuming, are really good, that they've been here for greater than 20 years. And basically we're saying, you know, too bad you've had this long career with us, and if you don't, you know, step in line, then you're out.
So do you want
I don't
a
think anyone's
grandfather,
perceiving
you want
it
a
that way.
grandfather clause on this? Or a grandparent, I guess you would say now, a grandparent clause in this. I mean, I get that. I mean, when they started off and they've been here for 20 years, there was no expectation that they would need to necessarily retrain. Although I think there are expectations that they maintain their license so that they do retrain in some ways. I don't know. I mean, I guess I don't think we want to. I don't think I want to build in a grandfather clause in this sort of thing if it isn't a problem. I'd like to know if it's a problem. I mean, what Kathy was saying, I thought, Kathy, do you know any of the stuff you're
But
talking
even for
about?
Lance says, I'd like to think.
I'd like to think. Certainly the new ones, there's been some expectations stated. So I think that because that's been the case, I'm not so concerned about that. If they want to leave, I guess they'll leave, and it's a free labor system. So,
I think to be fair, I think in the upcoming, if you want to do this, I think in the upcoming contracts, I think it should be clearly stated in there that as part of this, you will be required to do this. So if you're gonna sign on with us another year, and that's gonna be an expectation. I think they
Sure.
need to sign off on that that's an
And if they-
expectation, rather it being, we said it during your interview.
and if they don't
It's
want to do
very
that, they don't
important.
sign the contract, right? Yeah.
Exactly.
And then that's their decision. I mean, I think in some ways, I tend to be a general good guy,
So I think
my political tradition is really different than some others. But, this seems to be a sensible policy for the good of the school, for the good of the mission, for the, and the people who are in the quote unquote labor force, the people who are the people on the faculty, really have to like serve that goal. It's not like, oh, gee, do you want to come in at 10 rather than 8? I mean, it's
right,
just
and this would be done in any other industry. Yeah, I get that.
absolutely.
Just trying to be mindful of retention and our good teachers that have been here for a long time and started off a long time ago. But I think if it's in their contract that that's the expectation,
Yeah,
I think that's fair.
Yeah,
in my conversations with Mark, and we may have even mentioned it at our meetings with Lance and Corey, that we would put together we use the term like a memorandum of understanding. That would be part of their contract or part of their, moving forward.
And
So
I think
something
that,
similar.
from here on out, I think every contract with a new teacher should have, we may need you to
I
do
think-
this additional licensing in order to maintain employment or something
Right.
to that effect.
they
So
even
that
do
it's very
do that
clear.
with tenured people now. At the university level, it's just like, well, your specialty is cool, but enrollments aren't what they used to be, or curriculum has changed, et cetera, et cetera. So we've guaranteed that you won't be fired, you won't be let go, but you might have to retrain in such and such a thing. And I've done that with faculty people too, and they're not always happy, but honestly they're fairly happy to keep the employment and the benefits.
And Stacy, I absolutely understand the employee piece. This is really, it's different, but it's very similar. This is not that much unlike what happens quite often at the elementary level. So every year since I've been here, and it maybe happened before that, we have reduced elementary core teachers.
Mhm.
So we have about, across our 6 elementary buildings, we have about 100, give or take, 100 classroom, 100 core teachers. And it happens every year because of enrollment that, make this up, but for example, Riverview, might have 4 third grade teachers this year. Next year, they need 3. And, but maybe there's a second grade or a first grade opening in that building or another building. And so now we're asking maybe a teacher who's taught 4th grade for 10 years, 5 years, 10 years, knows that curriculum, knows that 4th grade curriculum. Now we're asking them to go and teach 1st or 2nd grade, where it's complete, again, they're still teaching math, science, English, social studies, but they're having to learn a whole new curriculum for a whole new grade and new learning targets and success out, little different, but similar. That happens happens every year in elementary, that a certain grade teacher who may have taught that grade for many years now has to shift and teach another grade. And
Right,
learn the
however,
curriculum for
they-
that grade.
However, they have the K through 8 or
Yeah,
the,
but it's still very
sure,
still very different when you've taught 4th grade or 5th grade. Now you gotta go teach or 2nd grade to 5th grade.
right,
is
but
probably-
when I started off and I think, oh, I wanna be a psychologist, I'm gonna study psychology, and I've been in it for over 20 years, and now you want me to go study social studies.
Yeah.
I don't know that I wanna do that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I understand what you're, again,
Yeah.
I don't
right
wanna
now.
belabor, I don't need to be
Yeah.
convinced.
Yeah,
If you wanna do it,
Yeah.
then put it in their contract, so it's very clear. And the other issue I wanna talk about is, more importantly, probably, not more importantly, but is this issue of how we're gonna fund this, because we obviously wanna do this in the cheapest way we want, and we're giving them all these options, up to $10,000. Why aren't we just saying, do number 1, it's the cheapest?
yeah, and I think most of them will. If I had, and again, maybe Lance is getting some feedback from his teachers that are impacted. I believe that most teachers will choose, and we've had some already at the middle school. I can think of 2 people
Or
that,
6.
yeah, who have taken the praxis exam in that subject area. There's online learning modules, there's practice questions and exams, and then you take this praxis exam. If I had to guess, I don't know that for sure, I think most of these 12 will opt for that option.
Okay, so I guess what I'm saying is that why are we gonna spend 9,000 for one teacher that wants to do this, or 10,000 for one teacher that wants to do this, rather than saying, this is what we'd like you to do?
I think the idea was we want to, as a district, provide these teachers with some options. We try to
If we're
help
talking
support.
on one
This is
hand
hard.
about supporting them and
Right.
wanting to retain them, then I think we need to give them options moving forward.
Right.
Yeah, that makes sense to me, and again, very common to give more than one opportunity to reach that same goal.
We didn't want to say you have to do this option, you have to do they're all different. They're all different individuals. They learn different. And we just thought as a way to help and support in maybe a challenging situation, as a way to help and support, here are all your options. And we're gonna also financially support this because we're asking you to do this. So,
I think we need to move on.
yeah.
Do we want to have a consensus in the committee that we recommend this with some minor reservations?
I guess I don't have any reservations, so if
I don't have
you
any
all do,
reservations
and that's the
either,
majority, then that's fine, but I don't.
I think if it's reflected in the minutes, that's fine.
Okay.
We're not voting on this,
Right.
this is not a,
Yeah, exactly.
So-
Okay.
Okay.
Right, okay.
All right.
All right.
Anything else for Mr. Masters on this topic? Otherwise, we will allow you to go back to your building. Thank you so
Go back to
much.
your building, yeah.
Go back to your
Go back to
building.
your real work, yeah.
Thank you very much, I appreciate it.
So teacher exit survey, we've got the thing from the vendor. Thanks a lot, Lance,
Thanks,
for
Lance.
helping us out.
You betcha.
Yeah, so I know there, at the last meeting, I shared we've been doing our own teacher exit interview surveys, thank you, Lance, through a Google form type thing. And there was some question on, do we want to look at an outside vendor to do that?
Is this our survey? Is this?
No, so
This is not.
School
Okay.
Perceptions is the name of the company,
Yep.
or the name of the vendor.
Right,
School Perceptions also does our staff engagement survey and our
Okay.
parent survey. So they do have an exit survey. So
okay.
I reached out to
Is
them.
this is it?
This is their survey, right?
Is ours similar to this?
Very much, yeah. I
Yeah.
think it touches on the key aspects or key factors of employee engagement, which impact retention and, you know, why people leave. So, yeah, I mean, I don't have any, you know, as an HR, you know, I don't have any issues or concerns about their survey or what they're asking. Again, I think it, but you know, just, it's been asked, to look, you know, should we be doing them ourselves or should we use an outside person to do our exit survey? So this is the survey that School Perceptions uses. She sent a proposal with some rates, and so I just included that as well. I would guess that if we go with School Perceptions, it'll probably cost about $2,500 a year.
So when it
Yeah.
lists, is it your understanding, Joyce, that when it lists how much the survey itself is, and it's $12.95? Is that like a once a year price, or is that an on, so
It's gotta be
I
once a
could
year.
resign in August and I may not get a survey till the following July because that's the time frame we deploy it. So it would really reduce potentially our response rate.
Yeah, when I talked to.
Unless we're gonna pay $12.95,
Yeah,
quarterly,
yeah.
right?
We typically would, if we want to continue to do them for teachers and professional faculties, most of those individuals resign, retire the end of the year, or we get them in July and August and maybe September. So, you know, we
I
would
guess the
have to
two-
provide them with the names and they would send them, you know, like as we know, teachers are resigning, retiring. We'd probably send them a list in May, June, July, August, and they would send them out for us. So,
And do they send them, like, we capture a personal email and then they send it there?
they would need the personal email because, you know, if
Yeah,
I resign or
would have
retire,
access.
once that date comes,
Nor would they
I-
be checking it if they resigned, right?
right, well, and IT will disable, you know, if I leave the
Right.
district,
Yeah.
usually the next, you know, the day after I'm done or
Yeah.
within a day or two, my access is disabled to anything related to the network, to email. So we'd have to get their personal emails.
I mean, in my mind, there's two questions. Number one, if someone is so, you know, real negative, are they more likely to answer the survey if it goes to someone outside the system, someone who doesn't have a dog in the fight in a sense? And I guess the other way of saying that is are the disgruntled people less likely to fill out the survey as it now is? The second question I have is, I think there's a kind of a concern about the written comments that we don't get to see. And I guess it boils down to a kind of a question of trust. Would we get a more unbiased report on the written comments, the summary of the written comments, if someone outside the system was doing the summary than we do on the inside? And, you know, I don't want to, you know, say that you're kind of cheating on the comments, but I think that's the only really reason why we want to pay any money to have somebody else do it, right? I mean, there's not that many to process the surveys. I mean, I know it takes work out of your people, but I don't know why are we even talking about this if we're satisfied with what we've got, or do we, you know, think that we may get a more forthright?
Well, one of the questions I had was the $12.95, and then you go lower and it talks about summary reports, comment reports, kind of what Carrie's talking about, the 60 per hour. Our team analyzes every comment in your survey and generates themes from these
Right,
comments.
Yeah, right.
So that's extra
Right.
to the $12.95.
Right. So the $12.95 really is for them to like administer it and set it, whatever they do. And then, again, likely they would be sending out these surveys to teachers, you know, who resign, retire, probably starting in whatever, May, June, July, August. And at the end of that time period, yeah, to you know, to get those, the summary, the data, the longitudinal, those are extra. Yeah. So,
I guess there's another question. It's like, why do we want to do this at all?
I think there's a lot of value in an exit survey. It's hard for me to stomach the cost when I'm not sure the system is broken. Other than we have had discussion about seeing the comments, and I understand that counterbalance of not wanting to have that be identifiable. You know, so there's some balance there, but I guess I'm not sure the system is broken enough to, well, broken at all. And if it is, then is it at a level that where we want to spend $2,500 several times a year? It just seems to take away from other things that might be, I don't know.
Well, I think an option that we have is if we don't go with this, I think that if we can change what we're doing, maybe have on the survey that we are giving says something like your information will be shared with, I don't know, something
The
about the
public.
confidentiality.
Because that's what we are, so.
But I think the way that, I mean, again, maybe if we revamped our model, but again, I think it's more about, you know, that there's a feeling that we are not getting all the information by not seeing those responses. And I mean, even the survey that was sent to me specifically by a teacher that had filled it out was different than the one that that you had sent to us. So, you know, it asked different questions that were not reflective in the other one. And again, I don't think that you are scrubbing the data and hiding things, but I think it's very important from a retention standpoint about why you know, our seasoned teachers are leaving. And even this doesn't, maybe the breakdown of the survey, but even doesn't even give an option up here of I left because I don't like this school district and I think we're not doing well. It's not even one of the options for why you left, except in other. So I think that I just don't think that I don't think the committee is getting the data that we want because of this confidentiality issue. I mean, I even think that, you know, we could come in, you know, I've offered that several times. We can come in and read the information for ourselves, knowing that it's confidential. But I think to restrict it and not know why some of our teachers are leaving, besides a vague thing of job opportunity outside of whatever. I just think those comments are important, and us not having them is.
Well, in this survey, I think that question is asked on this one. I've never seen the survey that we use in-house.
I'll resend it. I think I
Yeah,
sent
she
it
sent it to us
yeah.
after one of our last meetings, so.
Well, you
You and I-
did.
Yeah. That's
Again,
okay.
I don't
can
think we
send it
have
again.
to go with this, but if we're not gonna go with it, then I think we need to revamp our procedure and what we're doing as far as how we're discussing exit interviews.
Okay, I think the whole board would have to talk about that.
And this
for
is,
sure.
Meredith said $2,500 a few times a year. I thought it was $12.95 for the year,
Yeah, that's.
and then extra costs if we want to do some of these other reports. Is that correct?
Yeah, I would, the way I understood it when I talked to the rep from this company, and again, we use this company for other surveys we
Right.
do, that again, if we continue to do that teacher, professional, faculty group, those would be done like in that May through August, September. So that would, for that period of time, for that group, it would be the 12, whatever it is.
So they don't do it every time we want to deploy it. So if I
Correct.
wanted to do one in May, and then I wanted to do another one in August, and I want to do another one in December, is it $12.95 each of those times, or is it like good for a year, $12.95?
It's good, my understanding is it's good for the year.
And they would send it out repeatedly
Sure,
if we-
because
throughout the year.
people,
Okay, I'm
people
sorry, I
could have
misunderstood
Yeah,
done that.
that's my
that.
understanding, right, yeah.
I don't know,
So how would you like, I think this is the third, and you and I, we can touch base offline, Stacy, I'll go back and look, but I'm pretty sure the exit survey that we're using in-house, that this is the third year now that we've been doing that. I don't think we've changed the questions in 3 years because we want to compare year to year, so it's interesting that.
And are we doing that? Are we comparing year to year?
Yeah, so if you look
We
at
got that
the,
report
yeah,
out
we got
Yeah,
that
sure.
a
report
couple months
last, yeah,
ago that.
about how it
compared years.
compared to last year.
Right, I guess what's not in there is retention, how long the teacher had been in our
Oh,
district and left.
yeah.
So I think there's
Sure.
other data that's
Yeah.
not being captured.
Yeah, and we've got,
okay,
again,
I
I
don't know,
think-
so,
but how
is
do
it-
you want, I guess I'm looking, I am comfortable continuing to do what we're doing the in-house. I was asked to just research and bring forward
Yeah.
what it might look like if we used like school perceptions. So I will take
It-
the lead from
I-
this group.
In my opinion, if the only thing that we consider to be broken is that we can't view comments at this point, then maybe we need to sign a document that says, I will not share this information beyond this, and then we see the comments, there's ways to do those things. I'm not real keen always on identifiable
Yeah.
information. I think this is somebody who's trying to trust folks that their comments are gonna be kept
Confidential.
confidential.
And then
But
we'll
if
share
that
it.
is the
Yeah.
case, I would push for anybody who views the comments to sign something that it remains confidential.
We probably would have to do something, I probably have to get some legal advice on that
Right,
because
right.
when we do these surveys, whether it's our staff engagement, whether it's these exit surveys, we do it under the premise, or we send them out, saying your answers are confidential, so.
Yeah, if you
We're-
didn't say
the
that, of
intent
course,
is
there
not
might
to-
not be many people that would. fill them out.
Confidential to who, though?
To whoever views them.
The intent
Right,
is
so
not
it
then
doesn't say who's
Yeah.
allowed to view them and who's not.
again, I may just, if it's not the intent though, that the comments are shared with whatever group or groups of people. So I may just have to get some legal advice on that.
Well, my suggestion would be that we, look at the survey, we look at the procedure that we use,
Okay.
as a group, and just
Okay, look at our
look
current
at our
survey,
current model,
see
what
if
we're
we-
doing,
Okay,
see if there's anything that we can revamp that would, be more other data that we could add to
Sure.
that.
Yeah, I'd be in favor of that.
and
And
then,
then
if we want-
and then go from there. So, we have the data on the outside vendor. I appreciate you getting that, but
Sure.
let's, to Meredith's thought, if it's not broken, so why don't we just look at what we're doing a little
Sure.
closer
Sure.
and see what we can do to revamp it in a way that would be beneficial to all. And if we feel like perceptions can do it better, then
Okay.
we'll do it that way.
Yeah, I agree
Sounds
with
good.
that.
Sounds good.
Okay, last issue, because I have to go to work, right? Superintendent evaluation, and, here, let me just get this. You know, the only two things that we're doing between now, well, let me, all right. The evaluation process will begin in August of each school year. At that time, the board super, so that's picking two goals. And then a formative evaluation of the superintendent's efforts and progress pertaining to the job performance, the yearly chosen goals, and any strategic plans the board may have adopted shall be conducted no later than the end of the second week of December. This will involve the active participation of each board member in the following: the review of any available midterm information, data, artifacts provided by the superintendent. B, the compilation of the results of the survey questionnaire devised and adopted by the board and completed by each individual board member. It's November already. I think we should probably put that survey out by the 15th of November.
Okay.
And have everybody return it by the 1st of December. Okay?
What date again? 15th of
15th of November.
And then you said, return it no later than December.
Yeah.
December what? I'm curious.
December 1.
December 1, okay, thank you.
Okay. A meeting of the board in which all board members will have opportunity to present their own observations, discuss the materials provided by the superintendent and the survey questionnaire, and engage in summarizing results, conclusions, and recommendations. I think that should be on the board agenda as a closed meeting, even though I was told I couldn't use the term closed meeting in the policy. I think that should be done during the first meeting of the board in December.
Okay, which is what date? Can you guys let me?
Well, what is it?
December 7th?
Yeah.
No, I take that back. 14th, right? Is anyone the second
Oh, yeah,
Tuesday?
second
Yeah,
week, yeah, 14.
it's the latest it can be. Is that right,
Yeah.
Meredith?
Okay,
December 14th is the evening board meeting.
Okay.
so Carrie, I'm wondering can our committee meet that first week of December
Right.
to go through the results
Right.
of the compilation that everybody has, and
Exactly.
we present a summary
Yeah.
for the closed meeting, closed section of the meeting on December 14th. So that we would meet that first week, does that make sense?
Right. That's, yeah.
And then we would have, the other thing, how do we want to collect the artifacts that Mark wants to provide?
I think Mark ought to deposit them probably with me.
Okay,
Yeah.
so you'll reach out to him and have,
I will, yeah.
and so we'll have that and the survey by December 1st.
December 1st, yeah.
And then our December meeting, what day do we want to meet in December? Do we want to pick that now?
Well, I guess it depends on people's schedules, but certainly sometime, the second,
That first week, maybe?
yeah, that first week.
Meredith, do you have your schedule that far that you would
Oh,
know?
yeah.
Okay,
And to plan things ahead of time is so much better.
okay, perfect. So,
So what is it, from the second to the,
Yeah, you've got a whole week then in between the 14th.
Right.
It doesn't
we
matter
have
to me,
to
but.
have it ready for that meeting on the
Yeah.
14th, but,
which
We should
I,
try to do
which
it
I
earlier
can,
rather
because
than
they'll, it'll be pretty easy, because when that survey comes back, all the stuff is already, there's graphs and everything already made up. So we'll
Okay.
be able to see, everything pretty easily.
Okay, good.
So, do you guys like this 8 o'clock time?
Is that enough time? Does that give us enough time to do that? I don't know what, how much.
Yeah, so I'll
discussion
get
is
it on the 1st, and then, if we meet Wednesday, December 8th, at 8 o'clock, I think we can go through that if that works
Okay.
for everybody.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll have to make a couple of shifts, but yeah, that would work.
Do you
Okay.
want to do morning, or we can do something after? you get done with
Afternoon
work?
would be awesome.
Better, okay.
Yeah, like a 3 and after. would be
Yeah,
nice.
I think so too.
Okay, I can do 3 o'clock on
Okay.
December 8th. You want to do that?
I'm sure I can too.
Okay. So December 8th, 3 PM, we would have on that agenda, we would discuss the findings. And that meeting, that part of that meeting should probably be closed as well.
Yes, I think
our
so. Yeah,
personnel.
I think so
Okay.
too.
All right, well, I will send that out today then, you guys, so that everyone has ample opportunity to do that.
You'll send out the survey?
Yeah.
Okay. I talked to Mark, after we had that meeting and we picked our goal, et cetera, the disciplinary thing. But we haven't talked since, and I haven't gotten anything from Mark on that. I mean, my thought would be that, the first thing you should do is decide, just sort of do discovery and find out what the magnitude of the problem is. And suggest that you have a meeting with the vice principals, who are generally the disciplinarians at the schools, and and then get together some kind of plan. But I haven't seen anything on that at this point. The second goal was to do something about the gap, right? Wasn't that the one that Mark picked?
I think so.
Yeah.
I mean,
So I don't know. I'm thinking that I'd like to talk to him and say, for this first step in the evaluation, I'd like to see some kind of plan, some kind of plan to deal with both of those goals. That we need something in writing.
So part of the artifacts that you'd ask for is what a plan would be going forward.
How is he proposing to deal with these two goals?
Right, and really it's only gonna be, I would assume at this point, a development of a plan and, maybe building out an action plan. I think we need to be very conscious that we only asked for this maybe a month and a half ago. So having a plan of attack is probably about where we're at this point.
Yeah. But I think in some ways, I think it's kind of our job to kind of be the gadfly here. I mean, to kind of go to action. Because we, not just us, but the whole board is doing the evaluation. And this is the first time we've done it like this. So, there may be like, oh gee, I've got a lot to think about right now. I should put that on my list for maybe next week, or et cetera, et cetera. I mean, I'm gonna have to tell them there's a deadline on this, and the expectations are that we see some kind of proposal of how to deal with these two goals.
And remind me, is it January that we do his formal evaluate, or?
Well,
Like when do we?
We do a summary of that meeting, engage in summarizing results, conclusions, and recommendations. The board, and then the D thing is the board president and one other designated member of the board shall meet with the superintendent no later than the end of the second week of January
Okay,
to
okay,
share the consensus of the formative evaluation and listen to the superintendent's comments and reactions.
and then is it in that, I'm trying to just think of sort of a document and what this looks like, is that where the goals and the plan are formalized? That it, like, there's a written something or
No, I
other?
don't think that's not our function there. I
Okay.
mean, the board may say, okay, we need to, as a result of this evaluation, we need to do this and that. But I don't think I think we're just evaluating. We're just the keepers of the evaluation process.
Yeah, I'm just wondering about the goals, like when you were talking before about, these are the 2 goals and what the plan is. Where will that be, like, written?
That will be an artifact from the superintendent.
Okay,
That'll be an artifact from the superintendent. And we can, as a board, I think, be critical of any of that. As we engage in the evaluation, and whatever action is taken in reaction to that criticism would be up to the board as a whole.
perfect.
So, okay.
I wonder if, doesn't matter to me, as far as sending out the survey, I wonder if, so the board, right, the board meets next Tuesday.
Yep.
And I'll get some minutes together.
Yep,
But,
yep.
so through the minutes, we'll be reporting on what we just talked about.
Yeah, I would wait.
So I wonder then if you send the survey out,
I'd wait till the 15th.
or send it out right after the
After our
board
meeting.
meeting, or so
Right
that
after
they
the
know
board
it's
meeting.
coming.
Okay, okay.
Or either way, right?
Yep,
Versus
okay.
sending out, I think.
But it has to be back December 1st.
Yeah. Does that
Sure.
make sense?
Okay, yeah.
Because you'd be reporting out at next Tuesday,
Right.
what we
exactly,
talked about,
Exactly.
and then you could say, or we could say, to watch for the survey in the next couple of days.
Perfect.
Because I think next Tuesday's still only the 9th or the 10th, so they would still have until December
Yes, the
1st.
9th, yeah.
Just a thought, Stacy.
Sure.
So,
Is there anything else I may not have thought of on this one?
I don't think so.
and then what I
Okay.
think I heard you say, that we'll have a personnel committee meeting on the 8th at 3:00. We could, if there's other agenda items, we do those in open
We have a
session.
personnel meeting?
That's what we
Well, I
just.
think you guys-
We just decided, remember December 8th at 3?
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
December 8th. Yeah,
I'm sorry,
yeah.
I
Okay,
wasn't clear.
okay.
So
Yeah, that's
sounds
fine.
like this committee
sorry.
will meet again on December 8th, till a month away. There might be other agenda items, but if not, then the committee would go into closed session to discuss, right? But we could have other agenda
Yep,
items if
sure.
things come up
Yep,
between now and
exactly.
then. Okay,
Do you anticipate anything, you needing anything between now and December 8th that we would need to meet
not
again?
sure. No, between now and then, I
Yeah,
don't think so.
Okay, perfect.
I don't think so,
Okay,
All right.
but it's good to have one on the books.
yes.
All right, I think we need a motion to,
Yep, do we have a motion to adjourn?
I would move we adjourn.
Okay,
Second.
all those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Okay. Thank you much. Hope you have good days.
Yes, you as well.
Yeah. So Mark is not here this week? Oh, okay. Thanks, Joyce.